Because you don't have the permit to have the concert.
I don't think you need a permit to worship in a church. Last time I checked, you don't need a permit to worship.
Freedom, Radio Canada. It's religious freedom. Do you know that?
That's part of religious freedom.
Disrupt America, divide fuck.
Weird thing to happen. I don't know if people saw this over the weekend. This caught my eye from Table Salt. New Montreal police swarm a 1930s cathedral in to stop U.S. artist Sean Feucht. I think that's how you pronounce it. I know it looks like Feucht because of the CH, but apparently it's Feucht. From singing prayer. In the end, the police retreated, fines pending against the church. So, this is, unfortunately, not a surprise to fellow Canadians like myself who have seen this numerous times. And it just makes me shake my head in disbelief to think that a place that, you know, celebrates tolerancy and multiculturalism and diversity would have instances like this. And we've seen this before, primarily with COVID. They use the excuse of, well, you can't have people indoors during a pandemic. They use that as an excuse. But even more so, it's more alarming now in 2025 that this continues on. That apparently a church that is hosting an event with this singer they brought from America in to just perform inside the church is so problematic that the police had to get involved. I don't understand. I don't understand the, you know, the reasoning behind this. But here's the video of cops coming in and swarming into the cathedral. Watch. Like, look at all the officers there. And they got the door barricaded. Look at all of them.
Et on a déjà évoqué cette clause et ils ont dit n'importe quel de ces policiers-là qui veut empêcher une célébration.
Look at all. So there's what you'd say 12, 15 officers. I'm assuming standing in there. I don't know the exact number. There's even a bike cop there. A bike cop to crack down on a church for hosting an event with a concert inside the church. This is not like a public park. It's not a city street, so it's not interrupting traffic or anything. This is inside a church. So why are the police involved in this? Why are we even having police enter in this cathedral when all they're doing is having a simple service? I don't understand. I don't understand. And coming from an agnostic like myself that, you know, I don't have any problems with people, you know, practicing their faith or with their religion or going to these institutions. I have some qualms about organized religion, but that's just me personally. I thought we're supposed to be in a tolerant society. I thought we're supposed to be okay with this. But according to the Canadian government and who else is involved with this, they have problems with it. So National Post says Montreal Church, that church we just saw, is fined $2,500 for hosting U.S. Christian singer without a permit. That's the claim. That's the claim of why they had to have so many officers come into the church. Because apparently having a concert inside a building requires a permit. I have never heard that one before. That has to be something new to me. I've never heard you need a permit to have a simple service inside a church, like a concert. Again, this is not a public park. This is not on city streets, so it's not blocking traffic. I can understand that needing a permit. But inside a church, that's a new one. So they say the city of Montreal has fined a local church for hosting a concert by the U.S.-based Christian musician Sean Feucht. Or is it Feucht? Feucht's controversial views and his status as a rising star in the MAGA movement have led officials to cancel his concerts in several Canadian cities in recent days. Holy crap. Holy crap. So, a Christian singer who had a tour at these churches is being cancel cultured by the government of Canada and the city of Montreal for hosting an event inside a church. Simply because he's somehow linked to MAGA. Does that mean he agrees with everything that Trump is doing? Does that mean that he really is an authoritarian servant? Or maybe he's part of the Make America Great Again that someone like me can really respect, in the same way that I think we should be investing into Canada and making Canada great again. Like, it is just so crazy and cringeworthy that this is still happening in 2025 in this country, as we're praising ourselves and patting ourselves on the back for being tolerant to people. But on Friday evening, an evangelical church in Montreal allowed Feucht to perform a hastily scheduled concert over the objections of the city administration and is now facing a $2,500 fine. A spokesperson for Montreal Mayor Valerie Plante said the Ministerios Restoration Church in the city's Plateau Mont-Royal borough did not have a permit to organize a concert. Again, where all of a sudden did you have to have a permit to host a concert inside a church? Inside a church. Like, talk about a violation of church and state. Only this time, this is the coincidence, this is the kicker of it, is the state's actually violating the church. Usually it's the other way around. That's the kicker of this. And has been informed that the event could not take place. This show runs counter to the values of inclusion, solidarity, and respect that are championed in Montreal. Again, that's why I find this so conflicting. I thought we Canadians were supposed to endure values and solidarity and inclusion and tolerance for one another. I thought we're supposed to be a diverse nation. What happened to that? Freedom of expression is one of our fundamental values, but hateful and disciplinary speech or discriminatory speech is not acceptable in Montreal, Philip Mass said in a statement. Again, he's hosting a Christian sermon. Like, how is that discriminatory? How is that hateful? How is hosting an event inside a church in which people that are already at the church are going to be attending this event? How is that hateful? And why are we not allowed to hate things? So that's another side moment question that that's a philosophical dilemma that most people are having, including myself. A ticket was issued because the organization violated the regulations by going ahead with the show. Protesters gathered outside the church during the concert Friday evening. Montreal police say they arrested a 38-year-old man for obstruction. They also say a smoke bomb was set off inside the church during the performance. Feucht reacted Saturday on social media to the events in Montreal, claiming that 2 smoke bombs were thrown at his head during the concert. Now, you want to find the church for what the church does, worship, he said on X. Every Canadian should be embarrassed, concerned with this. No bigger scandal in Canada. I'm embarrassed. Just like I'm embarrassed that they're trying to try Tamara Lich and Chris Barber for 7 to 8 years for organizing a peaceful demonstration. Because, again, This all comes down to the simple principle factor of this. Do you believe in free speech? Do you believe in freedom of expression? Do you believe in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? And if you're nitpicking and saying that this guy has more rights than this guy, or trying to cookie cutter everything, then you really don't subscribe to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Then you don't believe in free speech. It's a principle matter. You either agree for everybody and allow everyone to have basic rights, the same rights that you do, or you don't believe it whatsoever. And if you don't believe it whatsoever, be careful what you wish for, because cracking down on this guy, cracking down on Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, eventually comes down to cracking on you. Because once you get aligned, once they find something about you, then they're going to come after you, and who's going to be supportive of you? That's why you have to have the principle. That is why it's so important and vital to not just Canada, but society as a whole, to have the value of free speech and free expression, which the Montreal police and that mayor are violating against this church. They have every right to have this concert. Every right. I don't understand why they need a permit to have a Christian-based concert inside a Christian-based church. I don't understand that. The church did not the church did not respond to requests for comment, the Canadian press said. Feucht was scheduled to perform east of Ottawa in Alfred, Ontario on Saturday afternoon before moving on to the Toronto area on Sunday. The Christian singer described himself as a musician, missionary, author, and activist. He has spoken against gender ideology, abortion, and the LGBTQ plus community, and his religious and political views have grabbed attention of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. So again, they're rolling on assumptions that, oh, this guy is a bigot. This guy is hateful. He's, discriminating against all people outside this church. It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. Again, you don't have to agree what this person says. You don't have to agree with the singer. But you have to, as a principled person, as the principle of free expression and freedom of speech, you have to acknowledge that that individual, whether you agree or disagree with, has every right to express their opinion the same way you have a right to express yours. That's why it's principled. That's why people need to be fully committed. If you're for free speech, then you have to be across the board. You have to be across the board. That's what tolerant people do. That's what a functioning society does. Because if you start cookie cuttering and start picking and choosing who has free speech and who doesn't, that is a dangerous, slippery slope to eventually coming down to you. So here, he got interviewed by Rebel News. This is one of their reporters in Alexandria, where he actually kind of mocked the CBC reporter when the CBC was trying to get at him by saying that, well, you don't have a permit to perform inside a church. That's what the CBC and Radio Canada reporter claimed that he needed a permit. Told a concert inside a church. Inside a church. And he fires back with this remark. Watch.
That is because you don't have the permit to have the concert.
I don't think you need a permit to worship in a church. Last time I checked, you don't need a permit to worship.
Religious freedom, Radio Canada. It's religious freedom. You know that?
Yeah.
Religious freedom. You don't need a permit to worship, Radio Canada.
Well, yeah.
So he's mocking the CBC for that statement. Well, you need a permit to have a concert inside a church, and he says that you don't need a permit for worship, which is right. That's part of religious freedom. That's part of religious freedom, that you don't need a permit. You don't need the state to clamp down on the church. That's the whole purpose of separation of church and state. At least that's what I thought. But apparently it's very mixed. It's very, very interesting that they coordinate the two. It's like the United States, the church influences the state, but here the state cracks down on the church. So the CBC is completely embarrassing themselves, and so much so that people watching this interview are mocking the CBC. You heard the guy yelling that freedom of religion, that was a stupid question make, that the CBC is making nonsense of this. And that's the point. They're making absurdity of this. They're embarrassing themselves because this guy should not have the police crack down on him. He was in every right to conduct and organize this peaceful demonstration, this peaceful event inside a church. And again, you don't have to agree with everything he says. You don't have to attend this church. But as a principled person, that's why it comes down to fundamentals. You have to acknowledge that what they did was a violation of this man and this church's right of freedom of expression. That's what makes this so critical. So here's how do you say that? Protestia? Someone tossed a smoke grenade onto the stage at the concert. The church that is hosting him is presently surrounded by police and protesters. So while he was performing, one of the demonstrators outside threw a smoke bomb inside the church. They were throwing smoke bombs inside the church. Again, I don't understand the mentality of all this. I don't understand the mentality that in a world where you claim that you're very tolerant and peaceful and respectful to all cultures, that you can't allow for this to happen. You can't allow for a service where a singer is performing a song inside a church as part of a church service. I don't understand. But here's what went down. So he caught it. He's passing it off to the other guy.
Yeah. Are you guys ready?
He's still performing. So I don't know who did that or why they did that, but clearly it doesn't work. He's still performing. He's still singing a song. A smoke grenade isn't going to do anything to a singer. I mean, you've been to a rock concert, right? They use smoke frequently when rock stars perform. So kind of redundant to throw a smoke bomb on stage to try to drown out the crowd. I don't know who did that, but that was kind of stupid. So here's him personally. This Sean Feucht, however you pronounce it. He's now calling Canada to rise up, saying that if they're attacking him for performing at church, they're eventually going to come down after you. And again, that's why I've been preaching about this. That's why it's such a valued principle that people need to understand. You can't just cookie cutter who's allowed to have free speech and free expression, who doesn't. That doesn't work. That's what breaks society. That's what crumbles down. And it's a slippery slope to eventually coming after you. So here's his statement after the fiasco of dealing with the police and protesters.
Hey, Sean Feucht here from Let Us Worship. I'm standing outside of a gorgeous cathedral that was built in the 1930s where for generations people have been freely worshiping God. But that freedom right now is under attack in the nation of Canada. The news has gone viral. Over the last several days, we've had 6 separate venues across the provinces of this nation cancel our free outdoor worship events. We need to take a stand in this nation. Now is the time for the church to arise in boldness. So I need you to do 3 quick things for me. Number 1, I need you to pray. Let's rally the prayer warriors all across this nation to fight back against this injustice. The battle's won in the heavens. Number 2, I need you to sign this petition. We are raising our voices with thousands, tens of thousands of Canadians that are going to stand up to the government and say, no, let us worship. And number 3, I need you to show up. Tonight in Montreal, tomorrow in Ottawa, and Sunday in Toronto, we are going to lift our voice and praise our God. This is the hour to let your voice be heard. Sign the petition today and let us all together raise our voices and say, let us worship.
So I don't see him being, an extremist or hateful or bigot. Again, you don't have to agree with everything he says or everything that this organization represents, but if you're going to claim yourself as being tolerant and claim yourself as being diverse and claim yourself as, welcoming all cultures into this country, all sorts of people, then why are you inflicting a crackdown on people that are peacefully worshiping? Again, you don't have to agree with this organization. You have to take part of it. That's what individual freedom allows you to do. But you have to have a principled stance. You have to acknowledge that everyone takes part of the Canadian rights and freedoms. That's why this is such a big deal. So the plebe reporter pointed this out, or the pleb reporter, as some people say. This is how the Toronto Star covered it. So they're trying to mix the words around. It says, supporting Trump goes against community standards in Vaughan, Ontario. So this is the concert that he was supposed to have by Toronto that got canceled. And it's funny that none of those articles, when they talk about the other provinces, mention about permits. And you think that an outdoor event, yes, I understand you need permits for that, but they don't even mention that in the articles. They talk about community standards. You can see Toronto Star, the city of Vaughan cancels concert set to feature mega superstar Sean Feucht. Officials say that the permit for the concert was denied on the basis of health and safety as well as community standards. Since when was concerts in this country using the same language that YouTube and social media platforms use? Community standards. I didn't realize Canada turned into an algorithm, not a country. That it's violating community standards that someone is having a concert to organize people together to worship Christ. That's somehow violating community standards. What? So the pleb reporter says if you support MAGA, then they will have venues shut down your Christian evangelical concerts. Canada is such a childish and unserious country. Stuff like this makes me so embarrassed to tell people I'm Canadian. Well, you know what's even more embarrassing is having people like Laura Babcock. And for anyone who doesn't know who this woman is, she is the general run-of-the-mill kind of liberal troll on social media. She is the one that demonizes people. She attacks anyone that criticizes Mark Carney, myself included. And she is part of the cult. She is part of the cult. She thinks she's, doing her due diligence to support Canadians while demonizing half the country because according to her that you have to kiss up to the establishment, you have to fall into line, you have to do everything the cult tells you to be a good Canadian. And this is what's embarrassing. This is what's embarrassing because while people say that they're Canadian and understand that Canada has charters, rights, and freedoms to spew out this nonsense, saying in Canada we have community standards and applauding that. It's just so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing that people can call themselves a tolerant Canadian and say that they praise diversity and tolerate all sorts of people of all walks of life and say this garbage. Say this garbage. Using verbatim, the same strategies that social media uses. Since when does a country have community standards? Explain to me that. Explain to me that. Here's CBC Watcher saying the city of Montreal has fined a local church $2,500 for hosting a concert Friday night by the U.S.-based Christian musician Sean Feucht. The city says that the church did not have a permit to organize the concert, which it says ran counter to Montreal's values of inclusion, solidarity, and respect. So, to me, that's an embarrassment. To me, that's an embarrassment to claim that you are representing values of inclusion, solidarity, and respect while disrespecting a church that is conducting a simple service with a singer that they brought in to host a concert event inside the church. Like, you want to talk about inclusion and solidarity and respect, then you allow them to partake in their concert. It's inside a church. They don't have to have a permit. That's ridiculous. That's a nonsense argument that they made. They're charging the church for no apparent reason, and it's a threat. It's a threat to everything that they claim Montreal is representing. It's a threat to the value of inclusion, solidarity, and respect. Because to them, that doesn't include freedom of speech. And if that doesn't include freedom of speech, then they don't represent any of those claims. They are total hypocrites. That's what's embarrassing. That's what's embarrassing about this country and people that are okay with this. That are okay with Tamara Leach and Chris Barber sentencing 7 to 8 years in prison for organizing a simple demonstration with bouncy castles. But yet the most heinous criminals walk free. That's what's embarrassing. All of it's embarrassing to have to deal with this over and over and over again, and yet being preached to us, being scolded about how they're doing this on the good faith of inclusion and solidarity and respect. It's a tolerant country, multiculturalism. And yet they do stuff like this. So it comes down to a simple measure. Do you agree with free speech or do you not? Are you a principled person with actual morals and values? Or you just go with the flow? You just go with the cults. That's what that Lauren Babcock does. But are you? Are you a cult follower that just goes with the flow even though they're cracking down on you? Or do you stand up for the actual values and principles that help form this great nation? That's what it takes to be a true Canadian.